On my 68th birthday, my daughter Claire and her husband Mark drove me 3 hours north, past the last gas station, past the last cell tower, to a patch of nowhere that didn't even have a name anymore. They stopped in front of a single wide trailer half swallowed by kudzu, its windows punched out, its tin roof the color of dried blood. Claire got out first, smiling the tight little smile she'd perfected in real estate listings. "Surprise, Mom, we bought you your very own place. No rent, no neighbors, no worries. Just peace and quiet." Mark popped the trunk and set one small suitcase on the ground. Inside were 3 changes of clothes, my heart pills, and the old leather Bible my mother gave me when I turned 16. They hugged me quickly, the way you hug someone at an airport when you're already late for your flight. "We'll visit," Claire promised, eyes shining with something that wasn't love. "Once you're settled." The car kicked up red dust and was gone. I stood there a long time. Long enough for the cicadas to start screaming. Long enough to realize the trailer had no electricity, no running water, and a padlock on the door they'd somehow forgotten to give me the key for. That was the moment the old me would have sat down on the suitcase and cried until dark. Instead I heard myself laugh, one short, sharp bark that startled a crow out of the pines. Because what Claire and Mark didn't know, what nobody in the family knew, was that the land we were standing on had belonged to my daddy before I was born. 43 acres of creek bottom and ridge pine that got tied up in probate when he died young and stayed tied up for 50 years. I never told a soul I'd quietly paid the back taxes 5 years ago and had the deed switched to my name only. It was my insurance policy. My, in case of fire, break glass plan. I left the suitcase where it sat, walked half a mile through the briars, and found the old logging road exactly where I remembered it. Another 20 minutes brought me to the far corner of my own property, the part nobody ever bothered to look at because it was too steep and too far from the county road. There, tucked against the hillside like it had grown there, was a little cedar cabin my daddy built with his own hands the year before he passed. Tin roof still good, stone chimney still standing, hand pump in the yard still drawing sweet water. I'd kept it maintained through a caretaker who thought he was working for some rich Yankee that never showed up. I spent my 68th birthday lighting the first fire that place had seen in decades, eating sardines and saltines from the storm box, and sleeping better than I had in 20 years. 2 weeks later my phone finally found 1 bar of service on top of the ridge. I made 3 calls. First to my lawyer, Ruth Ann Carver, mean as a snake and twice as smart, telling her to start eviction proceedings on the fancy 5-bedroom in Charlotte that Claire and Mark had been living in rent-free since my husband died. Turned out the house was in my name only, too. Another little detail Paul insisted on. Second call was to the power company. I had them cut service to that address effective immediately. Something about non-payment of a lien from 2009. Funny how those old bills resurface when somebody knows where to look. Third call was to Claire. I let it ring once and hung up. Then I turned the phone off for good and threw it in the creek. They showed up 4 days after that, tires squealing, both of them shouting before they even got out of the car. Claire was first up the porch steps, face blotched red with fury and fear. "Mom, what the hell is going on? The bank froze our accounts. They're saying we don't own the house. There are people changing the locks right now." Mark stood behind her looking like a man who'd just found out the lottery ticket he'd been framing was a fake. I was rocking on the porch swing, shelling purple hull peas into a tin bowl. Took my time answering. "Afternoon, kids," I said pleasantly. "Y'all want some sweet tea? It's hot out here." Claire made a sound like a tea kettle about to explode. "This isn't funny. We're being thrown out on the street." "No," I said, pouring myself a glass from the pitcher at my feet. "You're finding out what the street feels like. Difference is, I earned my quiet. You tried to steal yours." Mark started blubbering about lawsuits, about calling the sheriff, about elder abuse. I just pointed to the little hand-lettered sign I'd nailed to the porch post that morning. "Trespassers will be composted. No exceptions." Management. Claire took 1 step too close. I set the bowl down real slow. "Baby girl," I said, voice soft as velvet over steel, "you put me out with 1 suitcase and a bottle of pills. I walked away with 43 acres, a paid-for cabin, and every dime you thought was yours. You do the math on who came out ahead." She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. Nothing came out. Mark tried next. "We can fix this. We'll say it was all a misunderstanding. You come home. This is home," I cut in. "And you're not welcome in it." I stood up then, slowly. Let them see I wasn't shaking. Let them see the woman they'd written off as used up and harmless had grown claws while nobody was looking. "Drive on back to Charlotte," I told them. Sleep in that pretty SUV if you have to. Maybe it'll teach you what gratitude feels like. Claire found her voice at last. One last desperate card. We're family, she whispered. I smiled. First real smile in years. Family, I repeated, tasting the word. Funny, I buried both my parents, my husband, and 2 stillborn babies with more family around me than you ever showed. Turns out family isn't who shares your blood. It's who shows up when the blood's already been spilled. I picked up my bowl of peas and turned toward the screen door. Close the gate on your way out, I said over my shoulder. Coyotes are bad this year. They left. Engine revving, gravel flying, curses fading into the trees. I never saw them again. Some evenings I sit on this same porch and watch the fireflies come out over the creek. The cabin smells of wood smoke and lemon balm. There's a mason jar of wildflowers on the table and a cat named Judgment who adopted me the first week. Sometimes the wind carries the sound of a vehicle way off on the main road and my heart gives one hard thump. Just one, before it remembers I'm safe. I'm 71 now, stronger than I ever was at 40. Meaner, too, when I need to be. Mostly I'm just free. And every single night before I go to bed, I walk out to the edge of the yard, look up at all those stars nobody in the city ever sees, and I whisper the same thing. Thank you for the birthday present, Claire. Then I laugh until the owls answer back.